We're Great Bedwyn School from Wiltshire,
and we're going to tell you all about the Crofton beam engines.
Frank Wilmot was the last engineer at Crofton and he lived in this cottage. Frank Wilmot worked at Crofton for 10 years as an engine man and wore overalls and a cap. Frank Wilmot saw the chimney get cut down. After the station closed, he kept the engines safe and secure and stopped them rusting by painting them with oil. Frank Wilmot was very protective of the engines. When volunteers came in the 1960s to restore Crofton, he didn't want to let them in.
Without Mr. Wilmot looking after the engines, it would have been a disaster because the engines wouldn't be intact anymore.
Today we're going to talk to you about John Rennie and William Jessup.
John Rennie was a Scottish bridge engineer. He was the chief engineer of the Kennet and Avon Canal. His idea was to build a tunnel, but this would cost a lot of money.
William Jessup was an English engineer who was asked his opinion on the tunnel problem. He disliked tunnels. He liked pumping stations instead, like Crofton. Crofton was cheaper and safer to build than a long tunnel.
Both engineers worked together to help the canal become more sustainable.
This is all about James Watt and Matthew Bolton. These two engineers were the reason the beam engines work. James Watt improved the steam engine and invented the contraption that connects the beam and engine together.
Matthew Bolton paid for the engines to be built, saying, "You have a great idea and I have the money to build an idea." More than 450 Bolton and Watt engines were made, and one of those is at Crofton. Bolton and Watt supplied engines and expertise as far as Russia and Greece.
Bolton and Watt made the engine that is now in Crofton today. This engine is the oldest working beam engine in the world that is still working and still in its original location since 1812.
Welcome to Crofton News. Hope you've had a lovely day. Now here is Tilly with the news. Over to you, Tilly. Today we are talking to Mr. Giles, who worked at Crofton for many years. Mr. Giles, you initially wanted to drive steam engines. How did you feel when you failed your driver's test for the railway?
I was very sad, but then I got the job at Crofton.
How long have you worked at Crofton and what do you do?
I have worked at Crofton for 30 years. I started as the boiler man and then became a driver.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Giles. Now Tilly is going to be interviewing Mr. Giles' daughter, Ethel. Back to you, Tilly. How did you feel when you moved from Swindon to Crofton?
Very sad at first because I didn't want to leave my friends, but once I got used to it, I loved it.
If you want to learn more about Mr. Giles and Ethel, read Ethel's book, Crofton in the 20s. In Crofton, there is a beam engine from Harvey of Hale in Cornwall. Thomas Hocking came with his family from Cornwall to Crofton to install the engine in 1846.
Thomas Sr. worked with Thomas Jr., his son.
Soon after he installed the engine, something got jammed which meant it couldn't function properly. The noise was an ear-splitting shriek that you could hear from several miles away.
Thomas Jr. carried on his father's job as an engineer at Crofton Beam Engines in 1864 when his father was 43 and his son was 23.
The Hockings are important to Crofton because they were here for over 50 years and helped build the second engine.
Hello, and we'll be talking to you a little bit about the volunteers that work at Crofton Beam Engines.
This is Crofton Beam Engines. It is great, but we couldn't look after it without our wonderful volunteers.
Fun fact, there are about 60 volunteers that work at Crofton Beam Engines. 10 of them are called David.
Our volunteers have many different jobs. They run and look after the engines and the boiler, drive the engines on steaming days, cut the grass, clean the toilets, plan events, and talk with our visitors.
There you go. And remember, if you have any questions, ask a volunteer.
Hope you liked this video.
Thanks for watching.